an editor in his natural. He has just about finished his project, looking proud and pleased. There is one final step, just add some back.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my channel again. My name is Crazy Wise Beast, and yeah, I did recover from my bone surgery with concrete spine, and yeah, my bone specialist saw my videos and said I need to do a lot more better. So yeah, I'm gonna try to do a little bit more better. The hero's journey, I'm not very good at, telling the hero. I'm usually the guy who like makes villains or anti-hero, so I just wanted to talk about the hero's journey because everybody's trashing the hero so much. But you didn't came here about me apologizing, that kind of crap. You want to know about the fucking villains. So we're gonna talk about the villains. There's the cartoony villain, there's the villain that plans secretly everything behind and screws up everybody's lives, there's the ancient evil villain, and then there's the beast villain. The kind of like, think of it as like Godzilla or a dragon or the Kraken, the giant octopus monster in Viking mythology. Or like, imagine some stories about Bigfoots where Bigfoot attacks children and eats them. That's apparently a thing. And it's not usually restricted in North America, usually it's around the world. So that's one way you can make your cryptids, or well, your monsters, or your villainous monster cryptid. And it's also like, well, the dictator. Well, there's no like obvious answer to me explaining that. We all should know what a dictator is. If you don't, you're a child, or you have amnesia and you don't know what the world is. So fix your amnesia. Go, shoo, bye. So we're gonna talk about the cartoony villain. What is the cartoony villain? Like Looney Tunes, like the Elmer the Fudd. There's basically like the other villains of Scooby-Doo, the one-offs. There's like, well, all about the Decepticon villains, like basically evil Optimus Prime in the alternate universe, he's evil. And then there's like usually those kinds of villains. They get cartoony violence, they get hurt, they fail, they lose, they curse at the hero. Sometimes they may actually curse. Generally, the cartoony villains usually used for, like an educational purpose. Some sort of to kids, like teaching them not to be violent or not to always shout or yell, never to like always like be a jerk. And usually to help to get kids involved a little bit more, like behaving well, you gotta give like some moments to the villain, like a little bit of their backstory, sometimes a little bit of their personal life, sometimes they're struggling with their family, maybe their job, or maybe it's not their family job, maybe they're struggling with their finances. Something to give them struggle, a little bit of connection to the kids and the parents or older brothers and sisters. We'll talk about how to make them go through kids' stories a little bit more easier and how to treat the audience, just not now. We're talking about villains. When it comes to that, you gotta teach them a little bit about the villain, like their history, their personal life a little bit, just to make it a little interesting, or something they're doing currently at the moment right now. Maybe they're trying to like win a gardening contest, or maybe cooking, or maybe they're trying to win to be like, I don't know, good artist or something. Sometimes give the cartoony villain a sense of a victory, like they might win on that one thing that the hero failed, but it doesn't have any consequences. Or maybe they won it temporarily at the moment, and then after that moment they lose it for what, violently or non-violently. Maybe they lose it in a comedic way or sad way. You have to deliver that on yourself, but you have to make it such a way that it's in the realm of that's what's happening with the villain. No, don't make the villain talk all about what's in between their legs. No one's not there to like, tolerate, oh, I'm a villain and I'm a man and I'm evil. No, 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 no. You know where that works? Nowhere. Get rid of that mindset. What you have to say is probably going to tell me is, does the villain have to have, like, as a cartoony villain, an ambition? Yeah, like ruling the world is not a bad idea, or like local community or town, like the country. It doesn't have to be like big ambitious goals, such as I want to rule the world because I have a motivational effort because, let's just say they've been planning to avenge someone somehow. That's generally not how cartoony villains work. Maybe more like an adult show. You're going to have to pull that a little bit more comedically in a way, and a little bit more, makes sense in the logic of the show rather than makes sense in the logic of the moment, the screen time of the villain. What do I mean by that is makes sense in the screen time of the villain? It means like there's something that's able to defeat the villain. When people see it, yeah, it makes sense, but it doesn't like conflict with the show so much, but it's kind of, pulls people back a little bit. When you're kind of making a cartoony villain for, let's just say, the show, for an adult, you really want to make sense, make it a distraction for them. Like, oh wow, you didn't know they were into something like that. It's kind of weird. Or really, that's what got your attention? It was not the thing what the hero is doing right now, or that one side character. Okay, who knew? They're into that. Put exclamation mark on this thing. Makes sense. Separate the two. Make a cartoony villain also, like, it doesn't matter.
That's rough, buddy.
What the gender is. Suck a little bit in their personal life. Maybe in dating, or maybe not in dating, maybe in their marriage, maybe not in their marriage, maybe with their kids, maybe not with their kids. Maybe it's like, I don't know, with their parents, and they have like an older brother or sister, or little brother or sister, noise that pisses out of them, and they want to, like, you know, stab them in the back multiple times, make let that meat breathe in when they put them in the oven. So that way, it makes sense. You gotta have nice good cook, you know, just see them nice and roasted jerky. Oh, brother. That's one way. Another way you could do is maybe second life, like maybe in like finances or sports or generally common sense. There's many ways you could do this with a cartoony villain. Really, a cartoony villain is just a basic blueprint, more easier to deal with in a villainous trope. More energetic, more sad, more depressing, more angry, more happy, more weird, if you want to go that way, or more fetish. Treat your cartoony villains with a little bit of grain of salt. Now we get to the villain that plans everything and pulls the strings on everybody.
It's peanut butter jelly time! Peanut butter jelly time!
That plans everything and pulls the strings of everybody and ruins everybody's lives and causes too much conflict and misery and destruction. You have to make sense why they're doing this. Why are they pulling all the strings? Why are they being such a piece of shit? Well, give them a little purpose in life. Maybe they witness too much pain and suffering from their loved ones or family or their community or their country, and maybe for whatever reason they thought they were the chosen one, or they self-insert themselves as the chosen one, or maybe they believe they're the one true messiah in their own weird twisted mind and think they had to save the world. Or maybe they're not trying to save the world, maybe they're trying to like rule the world. They want to have fun ruining people's lives along the way. You know, it's entertaining for them. Maybe they don't want to rule the world or save the world. Maybe they want to just watch the world burn, and just pulling the strings is easier for them behind, and rather than forcing them through physical violence. That could work. That's probably a nice easy way to pull it off. But here's the thing, with such a villain, you have to make it very, well, how do I say this, intellectual in such a way. Usually these villains are usually smart, or sometimes they act smart in certain shows, but really they're actually a dumbass who doesn't know what's going on, and they're just wondering, what the fuck am I in this position for? And they have to keep up a facade, and they have to, like, you know, pretend to be a smartass. That could work, but you really have to work on that part. But generally, you have to make those kinds of villains are usually smart, or usually more silver tongue. What is a silver tongue? It means they're really good at lying. Or maybe they're not really good at silver tongue, or maybe they're not really smart, but they're really, really, really good at tricking people and falling for very obvious things. But when they say it in such a way and, like, show evidence, it actually makes sense how the character could fall for their devious ploys, and usually it makes sense if you show it to any other person who may be a villain in said show. That person will usually not fall for those kinds of characters, like evil deeds. Make them also like a little bit of like mysterious. You can give a little bit of their backstory, but not too much of their backstory. With such a villain, you really want to like get the grassroots. You want people to know so much about the villain, but not too much. You just want moderation on that. Does it make sense to tell them about their love life? If it involves in the story and it involves in their motivations for this, yes. If it doesn't, yeah, it's a little interesting tidbit, but honest to God, probably doesn't work. And usually you want these villains to be always 10 steps ahead of the hero until, like, you know, somehow the hero smarts up or rises up, or maybe the hero has a ridiculous power boost and becomes basically a plot device, or maybe not a plot device, but maybe like an OP-ass godly being that defeats the villain. Usually with these villains, you don't want them to, you know, to be defeated by bullshit reasons such as power friendship, or they get tricked because of that one thing that they usually would not be tricked by any other circumstances, and how come that works? Or maybe just like a bullshit reason. It doesn't make sense. You have to make it in such a way that people will like it and they just enjoy how the villain loses, you know? Interests people, makes people like them more. It's more fulfilling. You want it to make more sense and believable in the world, and also believable for people that are going to watch your show or play the game, I guess, or whatever medium they are going to go through this. But now you're going to have to figure out also about the powers and abilities. We're not talking about the powers and abilities. I'm going to talk about that later. But like I said in the heroes video, do regulations, which is control the powers. Certain abilities cannot do certain things, such as super strength cannot equal as super intelligence. Simple as that. obvious regulations. Pirates can't do certain things and they have limitations. When it comes to your smooth tongue villain, also get them one person they may have trusted as a friend. Maybe not that one person as a friend, but maybe that one person that they like and they kind of, are okay with them. Maybe to that one person they don't feel like they're a friend. Maybe they're a subordinate or maybe a piece of shit being treated with. Or maybe they feel like they're an instrument and they're okay with it. Or maybe they're not. But to the villain, it's more than that. But they have terrible people skills or just terrible skills at communicating at all like that. And when this person, generally dies, the smooth talk person goes a little insane to a whole lot weird and aggressively dangerous. And make them go sporadic when that happens. That's all you need to know about that. Now we're going to talk about the other villain, which would...
Live to preserve her.
How long can she stay like that?
I don't know.
Sandy's a girl?
Wow, Sandy.
would be when it comes to the dictator, it's obvious that he who has power who freed himself but no one else, and he who also enforces it, not the religion, because to say the government is God or to say the religion is God is to undermine their will. What does that actually mean? Well, usually with a dictator like villain, it doesn't matter if they're godly or if they're demonic or they're just a mere mortal. They have to have some sort of ego. Make the ego like they're like flawed. Make the villain also very stupid in certain ways of acting. Like they always think of them such as grandeur, more than a mere mortal or some sort of mere demigod or some sort of mere mortalist creature. And always make them always put pressure onto the world with their iron foot. I know it's iron fist, but usually when you become a dictator, you don't need an iron fist until you suppress that one person who basically has been undermining you and you use them as a punching bag. For example, Stalin had pressed his iron feet down at the Russian people so hard they barely survived through most of his tyranny, and at times could have collapsed the Soviet Union in an epic way. But Stalin somehow pulled it off because he had the right people with him that feared him or that were more patriotic to him and the country. In some weird way, it's somehow still made the Soviet Union survive. And that's an example of iron boot suppression. Well, how do you pull that off? Make them suppress a religion or a minority or a sex. It could be male, it could be female. You just have to show them being a jackass and suppressing people. And it's not suppressing people, it could be suppressing children. Children are very disobedient to the elders. It is not a good idea to let them have fun. Always put your kids into work. From the day they're born to the day they die, it is always good if they work. This is a sickness that the child must not get into, being too disobedient. Make that as a mantra for the dictator. They say it to the audience, or well, not audience, they say it to the people. So how the people believe it, they take it in, or it doesn't have to be for kids. It could be for my minority or the religion or that, said faction here, and have them suppress people, make them do absurd laws that you and I know that doesn't make sense. For example, Adolf Hitler did ban jazz music when he was the fear of Germany. Anyone who listened to jazz music did have punishment, sometimes to death. So what you can do? You could say they ban, it could be rap, hip-hop, it could be rock and roll, whatever music that the dictator doesn't like, bans it, and it's deemed unkosher. It's also halas. It's evil. This is a deviancy that must be wiped out because people do not listen to the Lord and Savior, said dictator here, it must be exterminated. Make it like that. So then the people eat it up, people like it, and make a small minority of people who just like to listen to the music. Or maybe it doesn't have to be music related, it could be sports. Whatever the dictator deems is bullshit to the people in their mind, the people follow it, and then there's a small group of people that usually foils a villain and usually grinds their gears, makes them angry. Eventually this pushes them to make more people hate them and make more people fight against them, make them have hard time like connecting with people or with just the people that they're supposedly supposed to help, make them also have hard time with certain things. Like obviously you should not basically execute someone for mistrial or just framed for an accidental crime, but it's obvious for everybody else because that person never did it. But for the dictator, they just basically pressed the button, they dipped in that innocent person into volcanic lava and shows it live to everybody, and people are upset about that and make people angry and make them protest and get violent. It doesn't have to be protest and violent. It could be straight ass civil war and making the villain have our time handling all this. Make the villain also like underestimate so many times different types of people or this one group of people, and every time they do, they never quite figure out this one weakness they have is basically screwing them over. And if they did, like, otherwise control that ego of theirs, or maybe they underestimate, or just controlling their underestimating people.
Going back to bed. Stupid Decepticon bullshit can fucking wait. OP gonna catch up on some Z's.
And someone else who's more better at the task, they're doing that and they don't have a big ass ego as them, or some sort of grandeur, facade, and make them do this task and they somehow finish it off and works, then yeah. But the villain that realizes that, because you know why? The ego, that one thing, it just controls. It ruins them. At the end, if you wanted to finish this villain, make it in such a way that this villain is seeing the error of their ways, maybe the error of their ways-ish, and they go skew to a whole new way, and they get defeated, and they get killed. Usually that is the right way, because in a perfect world, you don't need to have a trial or tribulations when it comes to dictators. Fuck that shit. You like to see them getting tortured horrifically, and you usually like to see them suffer for all the crimes they have done, and usually the people who like put that in there. Nobody wants to wait for a trial for the dictator who's made their lives miserable for so long, and has suppressed them for their freedom. Trials are only for the outside world that doesn't understand the land and the culture that has suffered, and generally will never be. Kind of like America. That's generally how you can treat your villain who is evil and all this deviancy, and you could say they got impaled or missile launched, or they could get like dropped in a pit and they've been melted alive in lava. Now we're gonna go and talk about basically the ancient evil threat of a villain.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
When it comes to ancient evil, well, you want it to elude in a few ways, and you don't want them to get so many weaknesses, because then they're no longer ancient evil. They're just the villain of the day or the villain of the show. You want them to show more grandeur than that. You want to use them very sparingly too, and you want to show them epically when they do show. So what is the ancient evil? A few ways you can do this in. The ancient evil has been prophesized. There is a chosen one, or there's a chosen MacGuffin. You don't know what a chosen MacGuffin is. Basically like a magic sword that could kill this ancient evil once and for all, or maybe some sort of like ancient spell that can imprison them again, or some sort of ancient technique that is used to purify the evil to ancient slumber again, putting them back to their resting spot until the next time they're awakened. That person is supposed to know that ancient technique. Something like that. That's the MacGuffin. Yeah, I know it's very broad, but it's called a MacGuffin. It's not called this particular object. No, the MacGuffin. Go with it. How can you do this with the ancient evil? With the ancient evil, when it comes to eluding them and the prophecy and all that other stuff, you want them to send a little bit of minions and henchmen to deal with the hero and underestimate the hero a little too much, and in a way accidentally increases the hero slowly and steadily. There are moments where the ancient evil will proceed to win and will win in a way that makes sense in a short term, but in the short term, the hero once again becomes OP as fuck and defeats the ancient evil's kind of plans and moments and such. To the end, for this kind of version of the ancient evil to possess somebody or possess an object, an animal, or maybe not possessing an object or an animal or a main character, you want them to appear menacingly and powerful and imposing. And when there is a chosen one in evil, you want the fight to look epic and grandeur. And sometimes you want it to look intelligible. What do I mean by intelligible? I mean certain moves and attacks that make sense. Oh yeah, in the world of the magic system, or the rules and set of the physics that has been implied, or the rules and sets of powers, it makes sense. Maybe that's why the ancient evil will do a little bit of like a little power burst, go up a little higher, and when they slowly get back down, they do it again, so that way they don't lose, altitude. And then when they go for the offensive again, they go full blast energy when they're flying to attack. And sometimes maybe they just phase out of reality to dodge a move, but when they're not expecting the hero to figure out maybe pebbles and dirt, they don't expect their guard to raise up for that. So the hero, tries making some sort of attack move that blends looks like it's pebbles and moves, but hits the ancient evil. It makes the ancient evil more angry or more aggressive, because you want this to be an opposing force. You want it to feel all-encompassing and crushing the hero or the chosen one to an extent, but not too much. And that way, when the ancient evil has been defeated, you can say, A, the ancient evil has once and for all been defeated, will no longer return, and is no longer a threat of the land. Or B, the ancient evil has been once again defeated physically, but spiritually it's still alive, but is in a dormant state until the next time it arises. The next chosen one will have to defeat it, and you could continue the cycle with that. You could say the ancient evil is converted to a good guy, but that's like a cop-out, and you have to make it make sense why. Like, nobody doesn't like that. It sounds boring and sad and pathetic all at the same time. Now, for the other way, the ancient evil has been prophesized in a couple of ways. It's been told by wives' tales by old people, or it's been told to like teach kids an educational purpose, but really it doesn't make sense. Or maybe, yeah, people have heard it a million times over, but they never took it serious because it never happened at the land or the world. But let's just say certain aspects of this story of the ancient evil may be a rhyme's tale, or maybe a stereotypical story that everybody has heard over and over and over again, or maybe a kid's story. Certain events, different world or a different land, kind of lines up mysteriously a little too well. You start showing this ancient evil arising first as events, not as is right now. What do I mean? Like earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, plagues, pandemics, undead zombie dancing Michael Jackson horde, whatever you name it. And let's just say these are the first signs of the ancient evil, then the hero has to figure out where the ancient evil lies. And when it comes to the ancient evil exerting its influence, maybe the second sign of it is more disastrous events, more things are out of control, sporadic and chaotic, and people can't understand what's going on. It makes people afraid, and people are not knowing what's going on. What is happening today or this month? And the ancient evil slowly arises in its corporeal form. What is a corporeal form? The corporeal form is usually their physical form. There's the astral form, is basically soul. Slowly they show their physical form, and they have like a fanboy who says, oh, now I have like, this one MacGuffin that you usually used to have, or maybe I drank your corpse's fluids, or I don't know, I wear your face, and now that you have awoken, and make the ancient evil scold the fanboy or fangirl, saying it's now their time to rise, and basically put down the fanboy, and show the fanboy is nothing compared to the great evil, because the great evil realizes, hey, there is a chosen one, or hey, for some reason there is no chosen one, but somehow I sense the presence of my long dead rival. Why is that? And how come it's lesser than my rival, but I could still feel it's kind of like my rival? And then realize, wait, you're my fanboy, you say you worship me, you like me, but you couldn't deal with this? Who the fuck do you think you are? Get the fuck out of here right now. And make it such a way that if this person does not leave right now, they are going to be neutralized. And then make the ancient evil deal with this problem themselves. Avatars. What are avatars? Stone golems. Gas giants. I don't know. Fucking Mitchells. Just use it in such a way that makes sense. And, the ancient evil sends hordes of these things to try to defeat the hero. It never makes sense. How the hero survives. Yeah, plot armor, I know. A couple times the hero almost gets, basically slugged or gets murked in permanently. And for some bullshit reason, backup rise, but it doesn't make a difference because the ancient evil is basically returning in almost full power, unbelievably. And that way, once it has returned, everybody's going to get their ass kicked. How can you defeat this ancient evil? Usually when it comes to this ancient evil and there's no exact prophecy, usually there's a MacGuffin or some sort of ancient technique that, would usually defeat them in such a way that generally when it comes to this route, it comes to two routes again. One, it's somehow defeats the ancient evil, they die, they explode, or they implode, or they just mysteriously turn into ash, and doesn't affect anybody, saves the world. Or you could say this, it doesn't kill them, it puts them in a sleep or a coma, or maybe just, once again, puts them in a state of dormancy. Again, you repeat the cycle, and nothing achieved. Yeah, the day is saved temporarily, but the ancient evil's just temporarily out. And now we're gonna go to the beast villain, or the cryptid, or more monstrous villain. Now for the beast villain. A beast villain, what is that? Or a monstrous villain? Basically, it's just an animalistic beast, some sort of unknown creature, an unstoppable berserker that has no chance of stopping that easily, and is usually more or less pure force of nature or rage or just uncontrollable strength or just the sheer suspense of the unknown being unleashed upon by the suckers of life and just see them getting shredded like a little paper. So, what does that even make sense for it? Well, basically, it's like werewolves, monsters, demons, a zombie sauropod that goes murderous on its own herd and kills everybody in it, and chases a caveman with his T-Rex named Phil. Personally, that's my name for him, so yeah. Or it could be like Godzilla, any version of him whatsoever. Yeah, there's multiple different types of Godzilla. There ain't the one type of Godzilla, like there is multiple different types of James Bond. There is also, like, oh, I don't know, the mysterious threat that's never been solved. You see it, you know it's there. It's stalking you, it's hunting you, it's relentless, it's deadly, it's destructive, and you can never get away from its ever-knowing, watchful presence. Just there, lurking at you, waiting to kill you and eat you and rip you in a tiny little shit. The way you deserve it. So yeah, that's fun. And then there's the monster, you know, that just goes stampede, crushes, destroys everything. Not a villain, it doesn't matter. It's a fucking monster. It's mean. It's supposed to step on your fucking face and make you feel like a piece of shit. And then there's the kind of monster that's, you know, stereotypical. Like I mentioned, zombies, werewolves, vampires. You know, that kind of shit. And you know how to write those. It's pretty obvious that they've been there for a long time. For such monsters, you want to be the grand suspense and fear and the whole, like, overwhelming force they are and just the sheer destructiveness or just the sporadicness and speed and blitzing of murderous, uncontrollable team of multiple forces. Or maybe it's not like, you know, one individual monster, it's just like a horde of them, like an endless wave after wave of bug monsters or robots, cyborg, lizardmen, or just an endless wave of, like, I don't know, slimy monsters of teeth and claw and just waiting to rip you to shreds. Something like that. Makes sense, is opposing, is endless, it's threatening, it's destructive. And then there's the kind of monster that's born from diseases, such as Zombie Phil from, well, Primal. You know, that one sauropod I mentioned that killed its entire herd. Or another, like, zombie-like monster force would be the Flood from Halo, you know, the one that's done right if they ever do Halo the show. Or any other version of Halo in TV. God, live actions. And basically, notice the Flood being this opposing, destructive force, capturing aliens by basically infecting them, turning into zombie, body out, grossed out horrors of monstrous, untold horror. Just one singular thought. Just consume. Which is a pretty good unstoppable force in itself. Or you could also, I don't know, make another sort of monster that's just like unstoppable and is a villain. The kind of monster that soars and feeds on like nightmares or dreams or flesh. And the kind that grows ever stronger and more powerful. And is usually more ludicrous than ever before. And is unable to be controlled by any means normally. And people just can't handle it. And it's just absurd and dangerously powerful. To the point where you find out that one weakness has a super easy flaw that's somehow that one thing that could kill it. Such as if we talked about the Jebedon Beast, the Silver Bullets. Probably not a good idea to use on realistic werewolves in real life if there's such a thing. Again, go watch my Jebedon Monster. Go watch my other content. I own it. It's my cringe. Ask other YouTubers. Can they own their cringe? No? Fuck them. What other kind of monsters can you say that's obviously just opposing and destructive? The kind of monster that's smart and meticulous and yet uncontrollable. Could be super massive or it could be super smart, super intelligent and just yet uncontrollable and you can't see the damn thing where it is and by the time you figure out where it is, BAM! It's there. It's ready to kill you. And that's the kind of villainous monster. I'm gonna also give you guys a bonus round.
You painted my paint job! Prepare for surgery!
Villain's journey that's being somewhat explored. The villain's journey, a few of those, well, it's been explored somewhat in recent years. It's kind of popping out a little bit here and there, such as the villain becomes originally a villain, slowly, steadily becomes a good guy through life experience or unexpectedness, does become a hero, just becomes still a villain, just more grandeur goals attainable. Or maybe you explore more of the villain's struggles and tribulations, how they got up to this scale of being an opposing, unstoppable force of evil, or maybe just starting to become a threat and is going to eventually tear down society for their own version of society. It's not a very explored way. There's a couple ways you could do this, such as, we're gonna go with the first one. The villain, has been punished, exiled, or maybe they're not punished. Maybe they're being tricked and duped to doing someone's dirty work, or maybe they're just doing it for the honor and glory. They go out there, adventure the world, find basically their target, hunt it to the ends of the world, get it and capture it or kill it and return it to their homeland, show it to their people and their glory and their victory, basking in their fame. But over the times of many, many different failures, of many epic trials, stupidness they have gone through, and many times they have learned their lesson of why their people or group or team sucks ass and why they ruins everybody else's lives, seeing how everything is done wrong and how it's all messed up, and now they have to figure out how to fix it, or maybe they won't be able to fix it, but maybe they'll find someone else to be able to fix it. They have to guide them in the right way, so that way they do not become an asshole. That's one way. It's a unique way. You could do it the same way again, instead of like finding someone, or maybe they have to fix it, maybe they are that one. They do have trials, tribulations, but they reaffirms their convictions, or maybe it doesn't confirm their convictions. It brings them to get a new form of conviction or a new idea that they're gonna act on, and they're gonna become more of a piece of shit of a person who's gonna act more violent and destructive. Make them struggle for this. It's just, we're seeing the villain story for ourselves. See how they are going to become the threat of the show eventually. Not a prequel or sequel or some sort of mequel. It's part of the story. If you're gonna do that as a bonus, ignore the hero. The hero is now basically filled in as the villain. Instead of becoming, I'm the hero, it's more like the hero does the hero thing, but we never see the hero, get all their trials and tribulations a lot. Remember, we do side by side with the villain. We compare the two. When it comes to this, it's a brand new form of genre-ish. It's not really been acted upon that well into media in such a way that everyone knows this, everyone likes it, and it becomes the blueprint for everyone else's show. Later, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to the North Pole to Santa's workshop, or as I've been now recently told, Santa's crater, because I'm in a search party to find Santa, because somehow nobody knew about this, but Rudolph apparently is a nuclear reactor this whole entire time and he blew up. That's what I've been told. Hopefully this is gonna be easier than the great battle of saving Black Michael Jackson from those xenomorph thriller aliens. Little Johnny. Poor little Johnny. Oh yeah, right, I gotta go to the North Pole and save good old Kris Kringle. Later, folks. Bye. Don't forget to visit the like button. Don't forget to fire the subscribe button on a rocket. Get a cable company for that. Here's my Instagram account. I like the name and keeping it. Here's my Amino. And here's also my Reddit, as well as my ArtStation. Alright, and my Anger, too.
Let's